Hello and welcome to the Athlete First Media Podcast. Today I'm joined by Holistic Hoops founder and runner of all things Holistic Hoops, Lauren Rousseau. Lauren, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, I want to get right into this thing because we got a lot to talk about. Let's start with what Holistic Hoops is, because obviously you've started something very different from what a lot of people do around Maine and a lot of other places as well. Where did the idea for Holistic Hoops start for you?
Well, it came from multiple different things. I kind of start, with my background in officiating. This is my 16th season officiating, and simple things of like, seeing that people don't know the rules. Right?
Yeah,
It's hard to be a great player or even a great coach or even a great official. Right? I see officials that
yeah,
don't know, but understanding the rules, and it's like that's never taught.
yeah.
I see things, sports performance, right? I have extreme attention to detail, and sometimes it's like a kid can't do a move or whatever it is, a skill that you're trying to teach them, not because of the basketball piece, the skill piece, but because their bodies literally can't move that way. You
Yeah.
haven't trained that into their bodies. And so the sports performance piece, and so like everything I talk about, I'm like, this got to be the most important. This has to be the most important, but it's just
Fair.
that it's all important.
Yeah.
But it's training, them to be the best athlete they can be. And then the injury prevention piece, that is just huge,
Yeah.
throughout my years of whether it was playing, coaching, officiating, the injuries I've seen, and then the setbacks. And I keep seeing, and it's so true, the ACL epidemic in females, it's
Oh,
insane. And
yeah. It's
you
insane.
and you're not, there's just such a gap there that we're not teaching it anywhere. We're not teaching it in school. We're not
Yep.
teaching it in any type of sports program. It's like it's an extra, only if you want to go to a specific sports performance program.
Yeah.
But it's missing. That's another gap. Nutrition, jeez. I mean, I've dove big into nutrition the last couple of years, and that's just such a huge piece. I mean, you walk into the
Yeah.
grocery store, and this is why I say, 90% of it, maybe even closer to 95%, it is literally poison. It is
Yeah.
so bad for you. But again,
Yep.
we're not teaching kids how to eat or what to eat. It's a free for all, and
Yep.
and kids eat crap, and then
Yep.
they're expected to
100%.
go perform. And again, so that's like another gap in the program. So it's that sports performance, nutrition, and then the mental performance.
Yeah.
Um, that that's huge too, obviously, because that holds so many kids back. And
Yeah.
again, that's not being taught where, kid misses a layup or whatever it is, they make a mistake and it's written all over them. Their body language, they mentally check out for, God knows how long.
Yep.
And so, kids are reacting because we haven't taught them how to respond.
Yes.
And there's quite a difference there. And there's gaps everywhere, and I saw it, and the opportunity. Women's sports is just absolutely, the industry is absolutely exploding, and so
Yeah.
the opportunity was there, and I said, let's go for it.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, especially when you hit on the mental parts, because I talk about it a lot on here, is like the biggest separator. And I've learned through talking to some elite athletes at the collegiate level, like the thing that separates the good from the great is that mental side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So to see like you do that was really cool because
Yep.
like obviously all the other stuff is fantastic too,
Mm-hmm.
but like the mental is such a hidden piece when
Yep.
it comes to all this. I mean, mental in general is a big old thing that is
Mm-hmm.
not talked about enough, but
Right.
certainly in the worlds of athletics, it's not
Yep.
talked about enough. So it's really cool that you did that.
Yeah.
What made you like hit on these spots specifically? Did you just see the need and hit the need, or was it like you from your background when you played?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I wish I knew this when I was younger. I wish I
Yeah.
knew this when I was younger. All these different pieces because you understand how much better you could have been, right?
Yeah.
And I see that constantly. Kids not reaching even close to their full potential
Yeah.
because it's so much more than just basketball.
Yeah.
It's everything else. It's all the little details. Like I said, I'm extremely detail oriented, and I just see, in society, within our school system, it's missing. What I kind of tell our girls is, you are your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Yeah.
And we don't teach them. We
No.
don't teach kids about who they are. Like,
No.
to me, the school system is designed to turn you into a worker, right? It teaches you
100%.
how to be a worker, how to fit into a box.
Hmm.
And, I don't think they want you to reach your full potential,
Yep.
and I do. I want
Yeah.
that for these kids, for this next generation of, let's actually teach these kids who they are, because the more they know about themselves, then they'll have a much better understanding of, what they want to do. Because
Yeah.
I think about with typically, high school age, even into college, but, in high school, oh, what do you want to, where do you want to go to college? What do you want to major in? What do you want to do? What career? What do you want to do for the rest of your life?
Uh-huh.
They're 15, 16, 17. They
Yeah.
don't know,
No, they
because
have no clue.
they don't know who they are, right?
Yeah.
They're just learning, what to think, not
Yeah.
necessarily the how or the why or who they are. And that's what Holistic Hoops does is, we really try to teach you who you are through the game of basketball.
Yeah. And how did the officiating side of your life start? I'd love to hear like the what made you decide to officiate, because certainly these
Yeah.
day and age it's impossible to find people who want to
Right.
officiate. So
Yeah, so I mean, it was never something I really considered, but my freshman year at USM, first semester, I was signed up for a music appreciation class, and I
nice.
went to one class, and it was like a 3 hour long class, and I was like, yeah, never again.
Holy.
So I went and saw, Fife Fields in his office, and I was like, I need a different class. I cannot go to that class again.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, Reggie Grant teaches how to officiate basketball Wednesday nights, 3 credits. And I was like, okay, done. Freshman year,
Yeah.
first semester, I'll take an easy class.
For sure.
And then that's kind of when I realized, you don't know the rules like you think you do when you actually pull
Yeah.
out the rule book. And but that's just it. And that's why I feel like there's so much, you just games of chaos, parents, fans, even coaches, players, they don't know the rules, but they
Yes.
think they do. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a different rule book at every level.
Yes.
There's the high school rule book for the NFHS. You've got a different rule book for women's college basketball, men's college basketball, a different one for the NBA, WNBA, FIBA. There are different rule books,
Yeah.
but a lot of people go based off what they see in the NBA.
Yeah.
And so then they try and do these moves. Like, you don't get a gather step in high school. You don't.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. And so, but they see these moves and then they try it in high school. And so there's a lot of confusion. But so that's another gap where I'm like, we can fix that. We can actually educate players, coaches, and officials, on the rules of the game.
Yeah. How did the core of holistic start? Like, how did you get the foundation of it running? Because I have to
Yeah.
imagine with where you are now, it took a whole lot to get started at least. So how did you start the whole thing?
It pretty much started right around 1 year ago today. I just, I decided I was going to leave XL, and go off on my own and, take that a huge leap of faith.
Yeah.
And, it all paid off. It was kind of one of those moments of like, you're never going to feel 100% ready, to make that jump and go off
For
on
sure.
your own. But, it was God's timing. And like I say, God's timing is always perfect. And, it was time to jump whether I was ready or not. And here
Yeah.
we are 1 year later, and, I couldn't be happier. Everything happens for a reason.
For
And,
sure.
just big things happen this year and even bigger things ahead. So I'm very grateful and just super excited.
I would love to hear the backstory for even further back, because obviously somewhere all of this had to start for you. The love of basketball and then
Yeah.
the love of wanting to train others. Where did that all start for you?
I mean, I've been playing basketball for as long as I can remember. It's always been my favorite sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually, you know what? Golf's now my favorite sport. Golf
Fair.
past basketball. Now that I'm in my 30s, now we're
That's
not
fair.
getting up and down the court anymore. I really, golf's definitely my favorite.
Yeah.
But just, I was lucky growing up because, back then not everyone had a camera. You didn't have access
Yep.
to your games, and my dad filmed every game I ever
That's
played,
awesome.
and so that was the first thing I do when I get home is watch my game. And Kids don't do that, but it's like
No.
one of the things, not to like, yeah, not to like brag, but I have a really high basketball IQ, and I
Yeah.
felt like I kind of always have. But it becomes from watching film, learning
Yeah.
from your mistakes, and understanding, seeing the floor, understanding spacing, matchups, things like that. So I knew, the film piece was important. Kids gotta see themselves, because it's different than when you're just on the floor
Yeah.
versus you go back and you watch it, from a different angle of view, break it down, and you learn a lot more. So
Yeah.
that's a big piece there. Um, I'd say a lot of it actually probably started about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
I started working with my trainer. His name's Preston Redwine, and he just taught me so much. He taught me so much about the sports performance, just how the body's supposed to function, how it's meant to function. And
Yeah.
when I first met him, I was in a boot. I had been going to physical therapy. I went and saw a specialist, and basically they were telling me I was probably going to need surgery on my Achilles. Um,
Oh.
and I met Preston, and he was just like, "I can fix you." And after the first session, I knew this guy was different. I knew
Yeah.
he was just different. He teaches the holistic approach, and
Yeah.
and I'd go, I just had an acupuncture yesterday, but like I do acupuncture, massages. Um, I've done myofascial, obviously a ton of attention to nutrition, but just all
Yeah.
of it. And it's like, man, again, like if I knew this when I was younger,
Yeah.
I would have been so much of a better player. Um, but yeah, I'd say definitely probably the last 4 or 5 years is really where, I started I started to see all the different pieces, what's missing, how we can bring it, um, just bring it into today's culture. So,
Yeah. When you left XL and decided to start your own thing, how much did you have right off rip, like of like resources? Did people come with you, or were you like, all right, here we go, because we're gonna figure this out on my own?
it was a little of both. I did have a few
Fair.
players come with me, not nearly as many as I was expecting,
Fair.
but that's okay. Honestly, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
You'll kind of see actually right behind me this little iceberg thing,
Hey. Yes.
right
Yes.
at the top. And success is at the top. It's backwards, but I think
Fair.
it's the fourth one down. Rejection.
Yes. Yeah.
Whew, did I get a lot of rejection last January, February. And it hurt. I was not in a great place last,
Yeah.
January, February, and then it was fine. As soon as the spring season started, I came back to life.
Yeah.
And that's when I finally, I saw like, okay, God, this is why you had me leave. This,
Yeah.
these last couple of months have been pretty awful, but here we are. It makes sense now. Like I said, God's timing is always perfect. Um, but yeah, I mean, it really, at that point, I had nothing else but to rely on my faith. Like I said, it was a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was also, well, let's see if she can do it. Let's see if it actually
Yep.
does happen, and we'll join maybe later.
Yep.
I get that
Sounds
as
about
well,
right.
and
Yeah.
I also get people love their comfort zones, and
Yep.
but of course, growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone.
For sure.
And so, um, yeah, last year this time was very, very tough, but I'd say from March on, I became a much better person. The program just continues to grow and become and just get better, and there's just more and more details, and it just,
Yeah.
like I said, everything just keeps getting better and better.
Now that we've got the how we've gotten here, what does the future look like for you? Next 10-ish years look like for you? What do you think? What do you hope, I should say, everything looks like in 10 years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give you a little bit more short term. Obviously, holistic hoops, I want to keep growing, and I truly believe that it's going to. But one thing about me is I never stop planning. I am a
Same way.
planner. Plan. Long term, short term. I am always planning, and so I have something new that we're coming out with this spring. Uh, and I know we're filming before I, go public with it, but
Yeah.
it's going to be called Trinity Hoops League. We are starting a new league, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. That's starting this spring.
Yep.
And I think that's going to take off as well. I'll kind of give you, a few details. It's going to be mostly, for the most part, almost all women.
Yep.
Meg Graff with XLP, her girls program is going to be a part of it. Hayden Campbell, her new program, Drip Academy, her program's gonna be a part of it. Shayna Epperson out of the Gardner area with Main Hype and MB Elites,
Yep.
they're gonna be a part of it. And then I'll leave some of the other stuff for some surprises, but we're
For
gonna
sure.
have it's gonna work not so much like play 2 games or play 4 games and you're done. It's going to run more like a clinic, and so you're also going to be getting the sports performance, the mental performance, the nutrition, film, rules, skills. Obviously
Yeah.
there is basketball.
Yeah.
That'll kind of be like your morning, and then we will have games in the afternoon and evening. Um, but yeah, it's going to be incredible, and kind of over the next couple months is where I'll kind of start releasing kind of who's going to be
Yeah.
doing everything.
Yeah.
All the incredible women we're going to have be a part of this. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And like I said, it'll be just 2 weekends this spring, but the idea is to grow it. Where
Yeah.
eventually maybe I don't want to say it'll ever be every single weekend, because I truly believe rest is important, and so you
For
do
sure.
need some weekends off. So, but the idea is definitely to grow it, and bring in, as many females as possible, women, girls, the players, women coaches, and then this part's going to be incredible. Is I'm also going to run in an officiating clinic at the same time.
Yep.
Again, all women, and so you're gonna see the culture change, because that's something I'm really trying to do, is change the culture. But that, in order to do that, it's beyond just one program.
100%.
It needs to feed into other programs, and I think this league is going to be a great way to do that. And like I said, really just change the culture from. I don't think the culture of AAU basketball is good at all right now. I think
No.
it. I think
No,
it's.
I
I
agree.
think it's so bad. Not even just AAU, just youth sports in general.
Yeah.
I think the culture
I
is
agree.
terrible, and for all the things I've kind of said, we're missing so much stuff, and there's
Hmm.
so much weight being put into, the social media,
Yep.
getting, that attention, that approval, and the skill. Kids are more interested in the ankle breaker that's going to make it on social media that, was 5 seconds of an entire game.
Yeah.
And you're putting so much weight into that, and it's like, what about the rest of the game?
Yeah.
It's become so much more about the individual and not enough about the team, and
For sure.
and I think social media is going to be, a huge part of that.
100%.
I think, but at the same time, a part of me is like, the kids, but another part of me is, it's the parents. A lot of parents,
100%.
there's so much comparing going on constantly,
Yeah.
because if one kid, is in a highlight video, then there's the comparing. Well, why didn't I get that? And
Yep.
and then there's the insecurity, and then and you bring other people down, and it's just the culture. Like I said, the culture that I'm seeing, we're putting way too much weight in the wrong thing. It's way at the
Yes.
surface, and
Yep.
there's no depth. There's no building of the foundation, and the fundamentals. A lot of that, it's just missing, and
Oh.
it's time that we bring it back, and we really focus on everything that's missing.
I talk about that a lot on the podcast too. Is like the AAU's in such a mess right now because it's truly just like you said, it's whoever can make the most highlights, and
Yeah.
we don't really care, and this is we're gonna go crazy and all this stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so wild to me. Like I think when AAU, the idea of AAU is great because obviously you're getting like the more exposure for the kids is huge because if they
Mm-hmm.
want to go play collegiately, that's a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But also let let your ability shine through and not have to do all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like not do all the extras that
Mm-hmm.
comes along with that. Play as if you're playing in a regular season school game where you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to win and you
Right.
don't care about the rest of it. And I mean not
Yeah.
that necessarily is how it works all the
Yeah.
time, but I talk
Yeah.
about that a lot.
Yeah. It's funny you say exposure, because I know that's what that's what kids want these days. They want to travel,
Yes.
they want to go to big tournaments, they want the
Yeah.
social media, they want the exposure.
Yes.
But these kids are not ready. And
No,
instead what happens is they get exposed. They want exposure,
that's
but
true.
instead they get exposed because you
Yes.
haven't built the foundation yet,
100%.
and it's things like, okay, you got your highlight video, and then 24, 48 hours later, somebody else's highlight, and yours is done, right?
Correct.
So you were so happy for that 24, 48 hours, and then what happens when that goes away? Right. And so
Yes.
you've got kids that just their emotions are just, it's a roller coaster, but
Yeah.
because, we haven't taught them the right way, and,
Yes, correct.
where the true value is, where the true growth and development needs to be. And so the exposure piece is like, and I'll tell you another thing. College recruiting is not what it used to be.
Oh, no, not at all.
The transfer portal has changed absolutely everything at the college
100%.
level. And so, because of that, and I know this, right? College coaches, they go to their first resources, they go to the transfer portal. That is
Correct.
the first place they are looking, right? Then they're looking more to their junior colleges, their prep schools. That's where they go to next. Then they go to high school.
Yep.
And so it's like, if I'm a college coach and I can go to the transfer portal and I can pick up a redshirt freshman, right? Take USM, for example, right? JC
Yep.
Christopher at
Yeah,
USM,
JC
right?
goes down there.
There are some steals, girls that pop up in the
Correct.
transfer portal, and it's like, holy crap,
Yeah.
And
How are they
so,
available?
right? And JC's just absolutely killing it. And so
Yeah.
when you're a college coach and you're recruiting, I don't even really want to say sophomores, but juniors and seniors, it's like
Yeah.
you can only recruit so far out because you don't even know what your team's going to look like next year, the year after, because of the transfer portal.
Correct.
There's so much change happening. And like I said, would you, as a college coach, I'd way rather, a JC Christopher than an
Correct.
18-year-old freshman.
Yeah. Who's never played at the level. Yeah.
And so it's just, you want to travel to all these different tournaments and get exposure. And yeah, there might be some college coaches there, but they're not real. The offers to high school students, it is going down and down.
Right.
It's just, there's less and less, it seems, every year of kids getting
100%.
offers, because the matter of fact is,
they can go get anybody.
They're going to the transfer portal, or they're going to, like a CMCC, school. They're getting, especially now, I'm almost positive this, schools like your junior colleges, SMCC, CMCC, those types of schools, it doesn't count towards your eligibility anymore.
Correct.
So you could go play at one of those schools for 2 years, then transfer to that D2 or D1 program you were hoping for, but you're 10 times more likely to get interest, having already done a couple of years of college, versus again being that junior or senior in high school. And that, so it's just, like I said, the transfer portal has just changed everything. The fact, I would actually almost recommend, go play, at a
100%.
junior college for a couple of years, get your core classes for super cheap, get some, get some college level experience. Then again, now you might have a better idea of what you want to do in life. And so, it's, again, I feel like that exposure piece is, again, it's kind of that surface level, right? And it's just, it's part of the culture that, I'm trying to change and get on par. I mean, have you ever seen like any interviews with Gino Oriyama? Like, yes, he obviously wants, the kids that are skilled, but he is looking for the well-rounded athletes.
100%.
Right? And you see that, like, those are the kids he recruits. And so you might be the most skilled player in the gym, but if you have a bad attitude, you're not a good teammate, you miss a layup, you check out for 20 seconds, or just, and then of course I could say injuries. There's just so many things that, we glorify, and it's not the right stuff. And, like I said, that's what we're trying to change.
It is crazy to me because, I mean, if you watched any interview of any high-level collegiate coach, right, they never talk about this person, went 7 for 8 from 3, or this person dunked on some kid. They don't care, because there's, this is arbitrary, because, there is only like a 2% of the population that can play at that high level, but of that 2%, there's a lot of options.
Right.
And if you have a bad attitude, you're not, no matter how skilled you are, a lot of high-level coaches aren't going to even look your way.
Nope.
It's all about what you're doing in a timeout, or when you mess up, and how you respond. Exactly.
The details.
And people
it's the
have
details.
no clue that that's how that works.
Right. Yep.
which is crazy to me.
Yep. There's a lot of gaps.
Yes. I'm interested with your perspective with AAU and how it currently is, which again I agree with. Um, when you were going about deciding that you wanted to do your own league, how important was it to you to make sure that it wasn't just exposure?
So that actually it's a good segue. We the emphasis is just so much more on development and practices.
Yeah.
I've seen this as well in a a Gino interview about when you look at Europe. I believe it's they practice. I think it's either 5 or 6 times and then one game. Right, so
Yes.
their ratio of development to games is I think like 5 or 6 to 1. Right, that's
Yes.
in Europe. Right, they focus
Yep.
so much more on the fundamentals. Then on the other hand, you look at the US, right? Maybe you have 2 practices a week, but some people,
Maybe.
there's very little structure, and so maybe they go to one. But
Yep.
even say you're going to two, right? Maybe that's 2.5 tops 3 hours of practice, and then
Yep.
you go play 4 games on the weekend. And so
Yep.
your ratio is less than one, right? You
Yep.
are getting more games than you are development.
Yep.
With holistic hoops, this spring, we're going to be about 3 to 1. 3 to 1, like every 3 practices or 3 hours to 1 hour of game,
Yeah.
1 hour of a game. So it's a much better ratio of development to just playing in games, right? Go
Yeah.
travel, exposure, games. We do it different.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you're already seeing, in just a matter of one year, the girls that I coached this year, the growth, you've already seen
Yeah.
it. And I just think, within, the next year or two, I mean, they're gonna blow by people because
Yes.
they've put the work in, they've built their foundation, and, like I said, the mind, body, and spirit. And it's already making a huge difference. And it's not even going to be close in a couple of years.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear too your opinion with like the doing it year round, but not
Mm-hmm.
really doing it year round. Like this idea that I think that people, especially right now, get this bad moniker of like you're doing one sport year round
Mm-hmm.
is so different, especially like with what you're saying. Because like for a lot of people, it is just like you said, playing a bunch of games and not like getting better. You're just
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep.
playing games. Um, I would love to hear like your side of things with how you kind of try to make sure that that's not the case with your program, because obviously you still want to get them on the court playing and all that good
Right.
stuff. But how do
Yep.
you make sure that you get them like consistently in the gym doing things that they can improve on? Like how do you approach that with the athlete? I guess is my question.
Um,
Because I'm
I'm
sure it's
trying to
very
think.
weird for like an athlete who hears their friends are doing da 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 da,
Mm-hmm.
out at Taco Bell at 3 a.m., out with their friends. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
not taking their whole self seriously.
Yeah.
How do you like get
Um,
the buy-in from the people, from your athletes, I should
I'll
say?
tell you, these kids, they buy in quickly because there's just there's so much structure. I give
Yeah,
them a ton of structure, and our practices, they're 2.5 hours long, so they are long, right? Much longer than any other practice.
yeah,
And the first hour and a half is spent mind, body, and spirit. About
yeah,
10 minutes of spirit, 40 minutes of mind, and like I said, that could be mental performance, that could be nutrition, that could be film and rules,
yeah,
and 40 minutes of sports performance. And then we get to basketball, and then an hour of basketball,
yeah,
and the girls, they get it.
yeah,
I don't just, and this is something I kind of said earlier, I don't just tell them the what, I
yeah,
tell them the why and the how. I
yeah,
teach them, not just me, we educate
yeah,
them. And obviously, I've got, an amazing nutritionist, sports performance coach, mental performance coach. We educate them on the why. And like, again, I said, earlier, that's something that I think is missing in the school system. The school
yeah,
system teaches you the what, they don't teach you the how or the why.
yep,
And so, we talk about discipline, and, I went and watched girls, some Gorham girls play at Scarborough the other day, and they're eating fruit in between games, and I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're like, thank goodness.
That's what we should be eating, fruit, versus,
Yes.
kids at the concession stand
Yeah,
getting
grabbing a hot
chicken
dog in between games.
tenders and crap, and
Yep.
like, who do you think's going to perform better,
Yeah.
and but we haven't taught them, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but the girls, they buy in, and it's awesome, because, they see the difference, and the confidence. I mean, that's another huge piece is, we expect these girls who don't even have confidence off the court to
Yeah.
magically have confidence the second they step on the court, and
Yep.
it doesn't work like that.
No.
You have to be a confident human being, and how you
Correct.
gain confidence is you learn about yourself. You learn about your mind, your
100%.
body, your spirit. The more you understand about yourself, the more confident you are, and then
Yeah.
the basketball piece just becomes 10 times easier.
100%.
And it honestly kind of is that simple, when we talk confidence, because that is one of the biggest things I see,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
is of all the parents, and this is kind of what I think about, I hear, oh, she's super skilled, but, mentally, lacks the mental composure, or, she's a really good athlete, or she lacks the skill, or she's got, it's like, exactly, you're not. So every kid, they're not well-rounded, right? They're missing something. There are
100%.
pieces missing. And, and so you've got to complete that, right? You've got to give them, and that's what I kind of say. I try to give them every piece that they need,
Yeah.
as much as possible. There's definitely like even more details I can think of,
For
but
sure.
obviously,
Yeah.
we're limited. That's one thing, I try to be as efficient as possible with our time, and there's a structure, and, there's a theme every day. And, like I said, they're all bought in. They
Yeah.
truly get it. And I also, this is another huge piece. What I saw, especially this fall, it really stood out to me, is I started to see joy. That
Mm.
is something that I think is missing. And I spend my time in a lot of gyms. I'm in a
Yeah.
different gym anywhere 4, 5, 6 nights of the week, whether it's officiating or just watching a game or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm always in a gym. And that has been the theme I've really started to notice, is so many programs at every level, the
Yeah.
joy is missing, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, why are you doing something if you don't get joy from it? And so
100%.
that's another piece where it's like, we bring the joy, and so when kids walk into the gym, I literally see them light up, and it's beyond just like a smile. It's beyond just the physical, I literally see like their spirits come to life, like they're
Yeah.
excited to be there. They know they belong. And it's such a huge part. You got to get these kids believing in themselves.
Yeah. Can you give more detail on like the day, what a day may look like? I know it's obviously very different every time, but like obviously you said like you take a certain amount of times to do each one of the pillars, but like what would like the detailed version of each of those look like, if that makes sense?
All right, you want some details? Let's
Yeah.
do.
Sell yourself. Sell
All right,
sell it.
let's
Sell it to the
do.
people.
Okay, so I kind of work it backwards. And so I think about the basketball piece first, and then I
Yep.
think about what we need to build that day to get them there. So, like,
Yep.
let's look at the day we get to the skill of Euro steps.
Yep.
So if it's a film day, right? Obviously, I'm showing you film,
Yep.
multiple clips, and I use clips, whether it could be, college, WNBA, NBA, what I use all different types of clips.
Yep.
And, I'll break it down for them. I teach them the rules about, when your dribble ends, your gather, you don't get a gather step, but you can time it, right?
Yep.
But the timing of your gather, the footwork, understanding the pivot foot, traveling, and I break it all down for them and through film. And so now, at least right now, they're able to visualize it. And that's huge, right? They're seeing it. They're seeing it, in these games, game settings.
Yep.
And so that's huge. And so now I've put it into their brain. Well, I always start with a Bible verse. And like I said, build your spirit. This could be a Bible verse, maybe just about confidence, something like that, and kind of, give them a little bit to think about. And then we would maybe go to film next, and then sports performance. And this is where it gets really detailed, because I think about what movements do you need to be able to do a Euro step. Take the basketball out of it.
Yeah.
You got to be able to decelerate.
100%.
And I'll tell you, that is the number one thing that I see missing, especially on the girls' side.
Oh, I
Girls
bet.
don't know how to slow down
Yeah.
and stop.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch girls go like it's everything's off one foot, off balance, just
Yep.
they don't know how to slow down. And so
Yep.
if you want to be able, so we teach deceleration, the details of um, the angle of hip to knee to ankle, because so many girls have valgus knee, where your knees go in, which puts you at risk for an ACL injury. And
Yep.
so we work on just the alignment, the um, the functional movement of the hip, the knee, the ankle, all of that stuff. And then of course, the deceleration. And then, okay, you also need change of direction, right? And
Yep.
so I'm going to get kind of technical here, but like,
No, I love it.
so the deceleration, right? You're kind of in sagittal plane, you're moving this way, but change of
Yep.
direction, you need to be able to move in frontal plane and transverse plane.
Yep.
And so we teach those things and we break it down for them, how to decelerate on one foot and then laterally to the other foot and be balanced throughout all of it.
Yep.
And so there's so much detail that goes into that. But so now we've really warmed up their spirits, their minds, their bodies. Now they're ready for basketball, right?
Yeah.
Now we put a basketball in their hands, and now that Euro step becomes 10 times easier because
Yeah.
we've put it into your body first. Now we add the basketball. And then we'll do maybe skills for 30 minutes, breaking down that skill, the Euro step, the footwork, over and over, reps.
Yep.
And then maybe the last 20, 30 minutes, we put it into action. Now we play 2-on-2, 3-on-3 in specific settings. That kind of
Yep.
sets you up to use that Euro step. And then maybe one of the two practices per week, the last 10 minutes, we scrimmage.
Yep.
So like even the 5-on-5 in practices is very little.
Yeah.
It's mostly the reps, the skills, and then either like 2v2, 3v3,
Yeah.
which really helps. What I say is, build your spirit, build your mind, build your body, build your skill, build your decision making.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge piece that's missing too. You
Oh
might
yeah.
see these super skillful kids that their ball handling is incredible, but if you dribble the ball every time you touch it, you're wrong probably 70% of the time.
Yeah.
It could have been a
100%.
shot, it should have been a pass, but you dribble, right? Because everyone
Yep.
wants to dribble. Same thing,
Yep.
you could be an incredible shooter, but if you shoot every time you touch it, not good. You're not good at making decisions.
Correct.
And so the decision making piece is so huge, and that also ties in, to the teamwork piece. It's not just one-on-one basketball. It is, well, a lot of times in these settings 3-on-3, but it's 5-on-5
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah. How intentional is the time? Because I have to imagine that it's wildly intentional, right? Because I mean, you can say, "Hey, go do this Euro," give them all the pieces, and then let them just kind of try and figure it out on their own. But I have to imagine that that's not exactly what you do. I have to imagine that it's very like, all right, we're not gonna just go like from 0 to 100 essentially.
Right.
Here we go, figure it out.
Yep.
Let's get you doing it at full speed. I have to imagine that
Right.
it slowly amps up that way.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's what you see, the kind of the whole practice build up, layer on top of each other. And, so maybe if it's a new skill we're learning, the first maybe 10, 15 minutes might be a little bit slower, just making sure we've got the footwork, the fundamentals. And then it's like, all right, challenge yourself, get outside your comfort zone, speed up, and then eventually now we're adding the defense. All right, you've got the skill, you've worked on the skill. Now let's add, when there's defense, how do you make decisions out of it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's incredible to watch the growth, and even in just a 2.5 hour session, you can see it, and you can for sure see it over the course of
Oh,
the fall was 9
yeah.
weeks, the spring was 12 weeks. I mean, I'll tell you, in the last spring, I remember it was around week 8. One of my players walked into the gym, and I was like, "You look different," and she I was like, "You look older." I was like, I see her 3-4 times a week. I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you look older? And it didn't click to me right then, but later I was like, it was the confidence, the way she walked in the gym, head a little high, like,
Yeah.
shoulders back. She was just walking with more confidence. And so again, we're building the human.
Yes.
So when you
Yeah.
get on the court, of course there's going to be more confidence. You're seeing the more confidence in the human just from the way she walked into the gym, the way she carried herself. And so I saw that, and then I started seeing it in all the other kids. But I remember that the first kid I saw, it was right around week 8 last spring.
Yeah.
This fall, I'll tell you, that piece back to the joy.
Yeah.
Joy is missing, right? It's I think the
100%.
spirit piece, right? The spirit piece is missing almost everywhere. And so I cranked that part up a little bit, and I started to see those same changes in week 5.
Yeah.
So it happened even faster in the fall of just kids becoming more confident. And again, it's not even on the basketball; it's what you're seeing them off the court.
Yeah.
And like I said, it obviously translates to the court, but it's just incredible to see the development when you give them all the pieces, when you put them in an environment, meant for them to succeed, meant for them to become a better version of themselves. It's just it's incredible.
Yeah. I love it. Okay, I want to get into my fun section.
All right.
Um, and get to know you a little bit more outside of just being, the head of Holistic Hoops, the face of it, I guess is a better
Mhm.
word. Um, who's the best player you've trained? And I'd love to hear like not just like who you would say like skill wise is the best
Right.
you've trained, but I'd love to hear
Right.
like who was like the most coachable you've ever trained too,
Ooh, ooh,
if
ooh,
there's
ooh.
someone who sticks out.
There's there's a lot there.
I bet.
I'll pick one. I'll pick one player that's in college. Maybe I'll pick one from high school. Maybe I'll pick one from middle school.
Okay, that works.
High college. Man, there's a lot to choose from. I probably I go just I'd go probably maybe Addison Sulikowski.
Okay.
The confidence she plays with is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
There's the way she shoots the ball, just her mindset, the way she approaches the game. Um, I got to watch her play last weekend. She plays for New Haven. They were playing at UNH
Gotcha.
last weekend. Um, it's when I see her shoot the ball, and it's just before she even releases it, I'm already like, shoot it, and
Yes. Yeah.
um, so she's an awesome kid, and just the way she competes, the way she never backs down, but just uh, she's a really good kid.
I like
Um,
that.
High school, there's so many to choose from. It's hard to pick just one. Um,
I'll take a
you
couple
know,
names too if you got a couple.
Yeah, well, I'll go with there was one, I refed a game last night, and so she's on, the top of my mind.
Yep.
Molly Puffer from Sanford.
Yes. Yep.
She plays for Bay State Jags now, but I coached her a few years ago.
Yep.
Same thing, just the competitive fire she plays with is just incredible, and
Yeah.
her shot. That's my thing. Shooting. That's definitely the
Yeah.
number one thing that I teach is how to shoot the basketball and how to shoot it with confidence. And man, that kid, she's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
her shot is just so beautiful. But the way she competes, the way she rebounds, how she is as a teammate, she's a really good kid, for
100%.
sure. Middle school, man, that's kind of, I have a lot of middle school kids. That's going to be hard to pick one, but I'll go with one that came with me from, I was even coaching her the previous year. Emily Carlonas, seventh grader from Gorham.
Gotcha.
That's one thing I said about her even before. She is so coachable,
Really?
so coachable. I mean, no matter whatever you tell her, she's gonna do it. She's gonna try. She's gonna give her best effort. Yeah, that's probably why I mean, it's so hard. There's a million
Yeah.
people I could
100%.
say, but
Yeah.
when we're talking coachable, for sure, Emily Carlonas, really good kid again.
I love it. Who's the best player you've coached against? Where you've been like,
Ooh.
okay, we gotta get a little bit
Hmm.
extra pressure. Like that person's definitely getting the best defender or whatever.
Well, it would probably be a few years ago, when I was helping coach Main Attraction. There was this girl. I think she's playing. She did her freshman year at, was it Rutgers? I forget where she is right now. Kiyomi McMiller. Oh
Okay.
my gosh,
Yeah.
her. I mean, the skill on this girl is absolutely insane. Her ball
Yeah.
handling, her shooting, everything, the way she moves, absolutely incredible player. But what's funny is if I had to guess, she's the type of player that you would expect to maybe even been at like a bigger time school.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there might have been maybe some other pieces missing, and maybe that's
Yeah.
why she didn't end up at one of the even bigger schools. But man, she had definitely is probably the most skillful player I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
Okay.
She cooked us. I think she had like 37. I think it was in the
Holy.
30s. Oh, she cooked. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Who's your favorite player of all time?
That's an easy one. Steph Curry,
Okay,
hands
that's fair.
down. I mean, I think he has just absolutely changed the game of basketball. He's
Yeah,
my
no
goat.
question.
Um,
Hey, okay.
Not LeBron, not LeBron.
Yeah. No, I
It's
love it.
when you talk about a player that's had the most influence in a game.
Oh yeah.
It's just it's completely changed from over the last 10, 15 years. I remember when I was in college, I had a game. I was 5 for 9 from three, and one was an and one. So 16 points on 9 shots. And the
Yeah.
next day at practice, I got yelled at for taking 9 threes in a game. And it's like, but it was, it wasn't, it
Yeah.
was like great
Different.
as
Yeah.
Steph Curry was changing the game, and that was the
Yeah.
style of basketball I wanted to play.
Yeah.
But a lot of coaches, they're more old school, and that
Yes.
was, I felt like I was kind of caught between, new school and old school basketball. But I mean, Steph Curry has just absolutely changed the game, and
Yeah.
what I love about him is just how humble he is. You don't see ego out of him.
No.
He's
Yeah.
incredibly grateful, and he's a really good role model, and just the way he's changed the game. I mean, he's by far my favorite.
Definitely would fit within like the holistic hoops side of things too. Like
Yeah,
he is a
yeah,
guy who really is like mind, spirit, and body all
yeah,
in
yeah.
one for sure.
It all matters.
Yeah, 100%. Who's your favorite all-time teammate?
Mm-mm-mm. My favorite teammate. You know what? I'm gonna go instead of like my personal teammate. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go with best teammate in the Holistic Hoops program.
I love it.
That's got to be Reese Harrison.
Okay.
She's a sophomore at TA.
Yeah.
Just does everything you want from a teammate perspective. She's
Yeah.
always lifting people up, always cheering them on, positive. She does all the things you want, and
Yeah.
she's a great leader for the program, especially we have more of middle school kids than high school kids, but she has definitely become the leader of the program, just
Yeah.
from how she is as a teammate, how she treats people, how she shows up for everybody. So I definitely want to hype her up as
Yeah.
as the best teammate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Who is your biggest mentor in life?
My biggest mentor.
Whatever it
I'm
is.
gonna go
But
with my trainer, Preston Redwine.
okay.
Um, he has encouraged me so much, and I actually remember, a few years ago, he was telling me to leave XL a few years ago and go off on
Yeah.
my own, and he said, even you got to change the culture.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I was like, no, 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 I couldn't do that, or I'm not ready, But
Yeah.
he had been encouraging me for years, that this was something I could do, and he's taught me just so much about, like I said, the way the body is, supposed to work, the way it's meant to work, from functional movement standpoint to just all the different systems, how they're all connected, the nervous system, all of it. Even there's so much that we weren't taught it, of
Yeah.
just how it's all connected, and and just the details. And he taught me a lot of that, and like I said, he encouraged me to go off on my own, and so I'm super grateful for him.
Yeah. Okay, I have one last question, and then we'll get out of here. Who is your biggest inspiration?
Who? I'll
Yeah,
say
or what?
more. Yeah, I'll say, well, where it comes from, and that's an easy one. That's God.
Yeah.
Like I said, a year ago, I was in a rough spot, at a low point of,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what was next, but I knew God had a plan, and my faith's always been it's always been huge for as long as I can remember. I've always believed in God. Always believed He had a plan for my life.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, this year was the biggest test of, like, how much do I trust Him? And
Yeah.
in those scary times, that's when it's like, well, you got nothing else to go off. I got to rely on my faith and what got me
For sure.
here. And I know God's plans are much better than mine, and
For sure.
thank God for that.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, I mean, that's where everything comes from. I just feel like he built me for this,
Yeah,
all the connections that I have, what I've learned, especially, with thinking, Trinity, the Hoops League, is that's going to come, as that's going to happen this spring, it's all the connections that I made through coaching, through
yeah,
officiating, through playing, playing myself. And so it's just, I feel like this program and the league that's coming, it's my whole life come full circle,
yeah,
it's exactly what, God had planned for me. And when I kind of think about what I said earlier about, how society teaches you, how to be a worker, how to fit into a box.
yeah,
And I wish somebody taught me otherwise, because now it's like I created something that didn't exist. You didn't. I'm not.
yeah,
I didn't fit into a box, and
yeah,
and I think that's a part of big faith, big vision,
for
and
sure.
and that's something I hope I can, teach other kids, is like, you're not meant to fit into a box. You can be
100%.
whoever you want to be. And, God has a plan for your life, and everything that's happened to you, good, bad, ugly, the people you've met, it's all for a reason. And, if you've got a lot of faith, big things will happen for you.
100%. I feel that. I love that.
Yeah.
That was great. Great way to end it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate you giving me some time to do it, to sit here and talk for a while.
Thank you
I'll
for
give
having
you
me.
Yeah, of course. I'll give you the chance to say anything at the end if you have anything else you want to say. I
Hmm.
always say like it can be, shouting out social media if you want to shout out the Holistic Hoop social media. It could
Hmm.
be a quote you love, for you certainly a Bible verse you love, or
Hmm.
anything like that. Um, if you got something on the docket coming here soon, that works too. Hey, okay, you got one right
Attitude.
there.
Yeah. For I can do
Okay,
everything through Christ who gives me strength. Philippians
nice.
4:13. That's a huge one. That's Steph Curry's favorite
Yep.
Bible verse. It's definitely one of my favorites. But it's true.
Yeah.
You can do anything you set your mind to. It really is, and that's what it comes down to.
My favorite Bible verse of all time too, by the way. Just
Yeah,
throw that out there.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a good one.
I used to have when I was a kid, I used to have like a little rock that my mom gave me when I was
Mhm.
little that had that verse on the written on the back of it. So carry that
Yeah.
like in K four
Yep.
with me. So
Awesome.
okay. Thank you again. Obviously to all that will listen, like it up, share it up, do all the things, and certainly check out Holistic Hoops and what Lauren's doing over there. But we will
Yeah.
see you guys next time.